Just take a look at this right here. This is what people are driving on. The scene is a lot different than it was just a few hours ago. I even have taken my coat off because it's so nice now. Now, a few hours ago, it was a lot different. Since 5, crews have actually made their way back into the cornfield. I'm actually going to step behind the camera and show you guys how close this plane went down. If you guys can see, just about 150 feet back into the cornfield, Marion County law enforcement are actually right where the plane went down. This was a huge fire. Horry County Fire Rescue tell me there was about 30 firefighters on the scene, as well as 12 engines and trucks. It took them about an hour to put out. I decided to join her, according to weather reports. And finally, I just got off the phone with the FBI a little while ago, and what it really comes down to is the fact that she was not charged with a crime. I have the council agenda for tonight, and nowhere on it is any mention of Bike Fest, the governor, or anything like that. So regardless of if there is a statement tonight, I plan to speak to Mayor Jake Evans one-on-one and get his remarks after the governor has called for an end to Bike Fest. You can hear in the park, they feel a little bit more comfortable. Just like we use social media day to day here in the newsroom, we get on Facebook, we get on Twitter, just so we can get people the information as fast as we can and also hear from the community as fast as possible. That's exactly what law enforcement tell me they do. Outfall projects are nothing new to Myrtle Beach. In fact, in the last 2 decades, the city spent more than $60 million on them. Now, while city officials say the main purpose is to maintain state-of-the-art water control, I found out the water quality could also affect your health. Carmen Feliciano and her 2 daughters were playing in the ocean on Wednesday, right in front of one of the stormwater pipes the city plans to remove.
I mean, bacteria. That right there alone says don't swim.
Feliciano says she comes to the beach to swim with her family several times a week and thinks the city should make the water quality more of a priority.
If the city's working on a problem and it takes 20 years, I think that's outrageous. If it's a serious issue, which I'm more than sure it is, then they need to address it immediately.
However, city officials say signs posted along the beach are just out of an abundance of caution, and removing the pipes is more for aesthetics.
A lot of it is perceptual. Having the rainwater pipes on the beach, it's not terribly attractive. It is still just rainwater, though, that needs to go someplace.
The Department of Health and Environmental Control says otherwise. Here's their website right here, and on it they have beach monitoring services. You guys can see these little green dots are swimming advisories. They say you don't really want to be swimming, and that goes all the way down to Surfside Beach and then all the way up here to 22. What these advisories say is this: swimming is not advised within 200 feet on either side of the sign when water is flowing, and especially after rain. Feliciano says she will still come to the beach with her family, but says she will be extra precautious.
Come on, get out of there. No, get out. Can you read? Come here and read this.
Now, DHEC has some permanent swimming advisories on all along the beaches along the coast in Myrtle Beach, but only during specific times, as I mentioned, like during heavy rainfall. They go on to say if the ETCOC or bacteria levels measure above 104, they do not advise swimming. Now, in some cases along the Grand Strand in Myrtle Beach, the levels are a lot higher than 104. In other cases, they're a lot lower. For a more detailed look at those levels, you can go to my story at WBTW.com. Live in the studio, I'm AJ Janavel for News 13. Yeah, and Erica, rip currents, it's nothing new. They talk about them every year, but still, research shows they still make up 80% of ocean rescues. Now, if you're in the ocean this summer, there's a likely chance you'll be caught up in a rip current. Today, I found out exactly what you can do to make sure you get out.
We're always on our toes. Our heads on a swivel. We're looking everywhere, trying to make sure that we got a count of everybody.
Oliver Spivey is a squad leader with the Lifeguards of North Myrtle Beach. Spivey has worked with the Beach Patrol since it began in 2007. He says when the summer months roll around, the rescues will skyrocket.
We had something like 350 water rescues within 3 days, the 4th of July weekend. Rip Current Central down here, it was insane.
Spivey says a lot of visitors are unfamiliar with the ocean, and when they get caught up in a rip current, they don't know what to do.
The panic sets in, you know, it's a sure way to drown.
Spivey says swimming against the pull of the current won't get you anywhere. Instead, he says to swim parallel to the beach until you are out of the rip current. However, I learned today that sometimes that's not enough. So, we wanted to show you exactly what to do if you're ever in this situation. Spivey found a good rip current, and with the support of North Myrtle Beach's Beach Patrol in the water with me, I went right into it. The ocean was not only pulling out, but it was also pulling north. Swimming parallel, going south against the long current, was just as tiring as swimming against the rip current. And try as I might, I needed to be rescued. Spivey says what you should do is feel which way the waters are pulling and swim on a diagonal with the current until you can stand. Spivey says being aware and staying calm are your best ways to get out of any rip currents this summer. Another advice lifeguards told me today is make sure you swim in areas that are always guarded. And another big one is realize when you need help. Spivey says for some people, being rescued can be embarrassing. I know it was a little embarrassing for me, but it's a lot better than the alternative. Live in the studio, I'm AJ Janavel for News 13. Law enforcement tell me soon human trafficking numbers will spike, and it's not due to rising cases, but just a growing awareness of the issue. This is something that has been going on for decades, and not just in foreign countries, but right in our own backyard. It's only now that people are becoming aware of this crime that could affect anyone.
I just began to understand that they were talking about prostitution.
At the age of 14, Holly Smith was trafficked into sex enslavement, something that sounds so sensational you may only hear it or see it in the movies. However, her story isn't that different than a lot of young teenagers. Smith told me she was at the mall when she met a guy. She says they spoke for weeks on the phone in her bedroom, only feet away from her parents.
He said all the kinds of things that a young, vulnerable teenager with low self-esteem would want to hear.
Smith says she was having a hard time transitioning into high school, with no friends and poor relationships with her parents. When this man offered her a new glamorous life, she says she was more than willing to run away. Smith says she soon learned the life promised to her was something very different than what she actually ended up with.
Sold me to a man just within hours of running away from home.
This all happened to Smith in 1992. Now with the internet, human trafficking and sex enslavement is easier than ever. PolarisProject.com, one of the leading sites in human trafficking awareness, says Backpage.com and Craigslist.com are how pimps are able to sell these girls. This happens across the country, even right here along the Grand Strand.
It's easy. You come here and you get lost, and it's so easy to get lost in the shuffle down here because there's so many people coming and going every week and every weekend that it makes it very easy for people to come and go unnoticed.
Kelly O'Neill Bagwell is the president of the Eastern Carolina Coalition Against Human Trafficking. She says there's a lot of factors that play into making Myrtle Beach a prime area for trafficking, like the transient population during the summer months, as well as the proximity to I-95 and our location right in the middle of New York and Miami, which she says makes up the human trafficking tunnel. However, you hardly hear these stories reported.
When we had situations where human trafficking was present, most of the time it doesn't get categorized that way. It gets categorized under other crimes.
Like prostitution. Here's a possible example. In 2013, WBTW ran a story of 7 prostitutes all being arrested in 1 week. Here's one of the girls who was arrested. Through online research, I came across this interesting headline. Apparently, the same girl was arrested in New York City months before for prostitution because of her pants. Those charges were dropped, but according to the New York Police Department, Felicia McGinnis has over 15 previous charges for prostitution. As well, according to Dade County records, McGinnis has been arrested for prostitution in Miami. Now, it could be prostitution or it could be human trafficking. It's hard to tell the difference, and it's hard for police officers in Myrtle Beach to enforce it.
Doesn't mean that it's not happening. It just means that it was showing up in different ways in the criminal justice system. So currently now, there's an increased awareness of it, and it is such a big business, and it's such a business that's operated in the shadows.
Pete Woods is an officer for the Myrtle Beach Police Department. He says the most important thing in criminal justice is awareness. And for law enforcement, human trafficking is a new issue they are only recently learning how to deal with.
And that's something in the past we weren't looking at. So it has a victim-based added approach to this now.
Woods says the Myrtle Beach Police have worked alongside the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division in creating a task force to better identify human trafficking cases. Woods says they are also getting extra backing from Columbia in the form of new laws.
The way the new law is written, we're going to make cases that we'll identify it, and we'll be able to successfully do it. I'm very encouraged by it.
With the new awareness and the new laws, the hope is they'll be able to save girls caught up in the life, just like Holly Smith.
Had I not been arrested, who knows where I would be today.
Smith was arrested in Atlantic City after only 36 hours away from her home. And believe it or not, she considers herself lucky. Smith says she knows her traffickers had plans to take her to New York, and at that point, she may have been gone forever. Smith now wants to do everything she can to make sure no one has to go through the same ordeal she faced at 14 years old. Now, everyone that I spoke to in this story say the best way to do this is by education. Smith has written a book called Walking Prey, which not only documents her story, but has learning tools geared towards law enforcement. Bagwell tells me their goal is to get this message to children ages 12 to 14, who are the prime targets for trafficking. She says the hope is to get human trafficking education and awareness into schools' curriculum. For more information, you can check my story on WBTW.com. Live in the studio, I'm AJ Janavel for News 13.